Fine.
So we have 2 years, so we said 7 years. Now we, the 2 execs are now coming clean. So there's ways for us to figure out. Because I got any success.
How are you?
To meet a sunset in a police academy team. How would it be? So,
Yeah, and there was a lot of cap.
I can't cap the money because of
On
my
that cap?
I did, yeah.
First capping, like I have 3 cars. Capping me at 3.
I can't because I have to sell and I don't want to make mistakes. There's 10,000 vehicles.
The other thing, I was at Upper Sauk on Monday. And he said, hey, what's the feedback this way? I said, feedback on your car. I said, the first year is county first. I said, that's what we're thinking. I said, in the second year, it would be $750 for that county.
Remember, that's what mine. I need to change that. You can just say.
I said, this is changing. I said, call. So, feedback I got. What guy was telling me, okay, all right. He doesn't want the money going out. He wants to make sure he's up. So that's one.
Guarantee that, but it's
I'm just
you guys will work.
And then second thing is, the guy said, this is
A requirement, if you approve it, for any capital plan.
Thank you. Just to give you a little background, the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts notified each court administrator in every county that the state will reimburse each county $34,000, as Rick mentioned, to purchase video conferencing equipment. And this is in an effort to reduce the cost and security risk associated with transporting inmates from state penitentiaries to the courthouse for court proceedings. The AOPC provided us with a list of equipment that would be acceptable for the grant. In turn, I met with IT to talk about the best use of to maximize the cost and come up with a plan. We submitted the plan to the AOPC. They approved the equipment that we're going to purchase. And the plan is to install it in all 4 criminal courtrooms, 1 unit in each courtroom. And just to give you an idea of some of the costs that we're hoping to save, I reached out to the Sheriff's Department for some numbers. The Sheriff's Department makes approximately 200 trips each year to state penitentiaries. The cost to transport an inmate from, I selected Camp Hill, which is the middle of the state, to give an average cost. And that cost is $547 to transport 1 inmate. If you multiply that by 200 trips per year, you're talking about $110,000 a year. If we cut that just in half, if we do 50 transports versus the 200, we're looking at saving $50,000, which is the cost of the equipment, and it'll pay for itself in the first year. So, more importantly, it's the security of these transports back and forth from the state penitentiaries to the courthouse. So, we think it's a good opportunity, return on investment, like Rick likes to say. So, we're here to hopefully amend the capital plan and move forward with purchasing the equipment.
Thank you. Any commissioner questions? Commissioner Holt.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said there, because Mr. Mulchaney, because at the beginning there you mentioned about where the funding was coming from this, and it sounds like it's coming from a grant. You mentioned something about leftover funding being available, and I wasn't sure if that was referencing leftover grant funding, or I was confused. So
Commissioner Holt, the funding stream for this would be $34,000 from the grant, and the additional roughly $1,600 coming from an existing capital project in court administration, where we would transfer $1,600 out of that project into this new project that would then allow us to purchase all the equipment as specified by Kira.
And what is that court admin project?
It's the steno equipment. It's project number 241001.000.47393 for steno machines and software. That is currently being funded out of the operating fund.
Thanks for that clarification.
Commissioner Zanelli?
Thank you. Will that impact will it impact at all the current project that is being pulled out of that extra balance?
No, that would be we were going to start replacing the steno machines as they get older, just like the PCs. So this would put that on hold. But on the other hand, it's been, as far as getting court reporters, it's been very, very difficult to fill our vacancies. So we're really starting to rethink whether or not we want to move forward with purchasing court reporting machines, because a lot of the schools, all of the schools in Pennsylvania, most of them are closed for court reporters. It's a 2-year program. And it's been very difficult to find court reporters, qualified court reporters, coming out of those schools to fill our vacancies. So we're rethinking whether or not we want to go in that direction, or whether we want to start using audio equipment. Many counties have started using audio.
So essentially, this is a reshifting internally
Correct.
of your own priorities.
Correct.
Well, then you can add me as a co-sponsor on that.
Commissioner Zanelli, is your microphone on?
I thought it was. It had the little red light.
Okay,
If it's just not picking up, I apologize.
good.
I can always be louder.
No, I heard you.
I heard you being louder. Any other commissioner comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, and I got a motion from the committee.
I move a positive recommendation on this bill.
I'll second that.
Hearing no further discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Unanimous decision. Any further business to come before this committee tonight? One question, Rick?
Person not elected.
Commissioner? This was not in the capital plan. Some commissioners have noticed that there are other items that are not in the capital plan, but are in the budget. Can you explain the philosophy there?
I can't, I don't know of any that are not in the capital plan, or not in the plan, but in the budget.
Commissioner Holt, do you wish to address that?
It was discussed at our meeting last night that there were at least 2 projects from the coroner's office that hadn't made it into the capital plan, and that did show up in the budget. The question was raised, an email exchange, which I can forward to you. I don't know if you're copied on that or not.
Was this mentioned by the coroner, Scott Grimm?
Yeah.
Was this for a vehicle?
A vehicle, and there were 2 items, a vehicle, and I can't remember now offhand what the other one was. But anyway, and it's money that, it was a misunderstanding. He explained he didn't realize they needed to be in the capital plan.
Did you say he understands that now?
And so it brought it up as a point of confusion, because it was unclear that if something wasn't in the capital plan, how could it go in the budget? And there was some correspondence with law to try to get some clarity on what the proper channels are, if you will.
Commissioner Holt, I did see that particular line item that was presented to fiscal from the coroner's office. I immediately called the coroner, and the rule by our county charter states very clearly, items that are above $20,000 need to be in the capital plan prior to being in the budget. And in the event we would pursue that particular item, we'd have to do an amendment to the capital plan to in fact have it in the plan so that it can be spent in the 2019 budget.
This was my reply to your email today. So I figure that if he wants to go forward, he should come forward with an amendment.
He'll have to work an amendment, and Commissioner, I understand how it happened, because most times when projects are under 20, they don't deal in the capital plan for me, they go directly to fiscal. So in that case, I think Scott did that, not knowing that it did rise up to the $20. We've had the conversation, fully understands now how we need to pursue in the future. And Commissioner Holt, it would be my understanding, and I'm sure law would agree, that we would need to do an amendment to the 2019 plan before we can actually pursue spending that project.
I'm not exactly sure that's the answer I got back. We'll follow up with that later. We don't have to do that here at this time, but I appreciate it. And there weren't any other items.
Yeah,
Okay.
don't scare me like that.
That was the major one.
Yeah, it was one that stood out.
Right.
Thank you for getting that clarity. We can follow up further.
Because that was my clarification to Commissioner Holt also, that I figured that even though, let's say, if we pass that in the budget supersedes any previous, but I still believe that to get in the budget in the first place, it has to have an amendment beforehand.
And Commissioner, I'm surprised that it's actually a line item in. I believe we were doing the amendment for that project in 2019. So if it's already in, it's maybe prematurely in the operating budget because I don't have the amendment prepared for that particular vehicle at this time. I'm not saying I can't have it within days, but I don't have it available today. So again, it's the cart before the horse maybe, but I can certainly have an amendment and present an amendment to this board for that vehicle purchase. I believe it's $35,000-ish.
And the X-ray machine.
The X-ray I think is under.
It was a total of 70.
I haven't even familiar with that piece of equipment. I never even heard of that one.
Okay, let's work this out outside of this meeting then.
Okay.
At least we have some movement on that.
Well, we will, but I'll have to talk to fiscal about the correct procedure to manage forward. My preference would be an amendment to the capital plan.
And if you want to work with our clerk, he has the correspondence and would be more available. Well, I'll make myself available as well to follow up with what we had gotten from the law.
I see her back there, so, okay. I'll proceed and I'll follow through.
Thank you. Anything else to come before this committee? If not, do I hear a motion for adjournment? Restand adjourned. Thank you.
I'll call the governance committee to order at 6:40. There's two items on the agenda. They're the same, basically the same issue. It is outside counsel. And I believe Mr. Hoza, Director of Administration, will give us a presentation. But it is an appointment for outside counsel available Weiss to serve as counsel for the County of Lehigh relating to the county's claims against paint manufacturers for losses associated with lead paint. Mr. Hoza, how are you?
I am good, Commissioner Brown. I am actually filling in for Mr. Kane, who could not be with us this evening. And I will be turning the presentation over to County Solicitor Sarah Murray, who will then be introducing the representatives from the law firm that will be dealing with the lead paint issue.
Thank you, Mr. Hoza. This is like pass the torch. We keep saying we're going to hand it off to someone else. As Mr. Hoza mentioned, my name is Sarah Murray, County Solicitor, and we're here tonight to make a request for the appointment of Anna Weiss out of Philadelphia as outside counsel with respect to claims that have been made against paint manufacturers for losses of the county in connection with lead paint. With me tonight, we have David Senoff, an attorney with Anna Weiss, and also Colleen McCauley of the Public Citizens for Children and Youth, also known as PCCY. Myself, Mr. Hoza, Mr. Armstrong, and Mr. Kane met with the two of us tonight, as well as Donna Cooper of PCCY a few months back. In that meeting, they presented some background on litigation that they were proposing the county bring against lead paint manufacturers. And they outlined the reasoning for bringing this to the county and also provided us with some numbers to show the impact of lead paint on Lehigh County. So I'd ask them to join us here tonight to provide this board with a shortened version of that meeting, so you have that information to consider with respect to that proposal. So, here's Mr. Senoff, our attorney Senoff, and Ms. McCauley.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and thank you, commissioners, for making the time to hear us out tonight. Really appreciate your attention and your interest. I'm Colleen McCauley. I'm the Health Policy Director at Public Citizens for Children and Youth. We're a kids advocacy, policy, and direct service organization. We've been around for about 40 years, primarily working in Southeast Pennsylvania, working on behalf of kids there. But we work statewide as well. We help get the Pre-K for PA program going across the state and the Fair Funding Campaign for K-12 education. And our lead work, for example, we do some statewide work on that as well. So we are here to talk to you about lead poisoning tonight. You may be saying, you know, like, Colleen, why are we talking about this in 2018? Didn't we take care of this? Well, it's true. We have made substantial progress over the last couple decades in reducing kids' exposure to lead hazards, but not enough. There are still too many kids that are being poisoned right here in the state and right here in Lehigh County. In 2014, the Department of Health's lead program put out their annual surveillance report, and they listed the largest cities in the state and the share of kids who have elevated blood lead levels. And in 2014, in Allentown, nearly 1 in 4 kids who were tested had elevated results, had been exposed to lead. So about 23% of kids, that was a bit over 500 children in 2014. In Bethlehem, about 14%, or 1 in 7 kids who were tested in 2014, had elevated blood lead levels. So in Lehigh County, we don't have the highest share. We have the highest share of kids in Allentown of the cities in Pennsylvania. Back in Philadelphia, we have the highest number of kids, right? We have over 3,000 kids in 2014 who were exposed, but that represents 10% of kids tested. Again, here, it was it was 23%. Compared to Flint, right? We've been learning about the tragedy in Flint for several years. 3.5% of kids tested in Flint had elevated blood lead levels. So comparatively, it's a significant issue right here in the county and in Pennsylvania. But what's different between Pennsylvania and Flint is the source, right? In Flint, it was a corroded water source. In Lehigh County and across Pennsylvania and across the nation, frankly, the number one source of lead poisoning of children is lead-based paint. It's paint in their homes. And lead-based paint wasn't banned for residential use until 1978. And we got a lot of old properties across the state, and most properties here in Lehigh County were built before lead paint was banned in 1978. So many homes are still coated with this toxic paint. And babies are mostly exposed to it through dust, actually. So when you think about kids chewing on paint chips, well, that's not typically how it happens. It's dust, right? The paint sloughs, chips, breaks, falls to the floor, and it gets further, it could be stepped on, and it creates a dust, or we're opening windows that were painted, old windows that were painted, and it creates a dust and it sits in the sills, and kids do what they do. They explore their world with their hands, and their hands go in their mouth. All right, so babies are most susceptible because of their developing brain and their nervous system is developing so early. So the impact is serious, right? So it robs kids of IQ points, it slows their growth and development, it damages hearing and speech, it causes behavioral problems, particularly about paying attention and being able to learn. So it follows them into the classroom. And so the longer term impact is these kids at higher risk of needing early intervention before they get to school, needing special ed once they get there. And there's plenty of evidence to show that they're at higher risk for not finishing school and getting involved in juvenile justice system. There's not a treatment. There's no cure for lead poisoning. The damage is done. You don't get your brain cells back. So the solution is also not rocket science. It's removing the hazard from children's environments in the first place, so getting it out of their homes. The barrier, right, you likely know, it can be costly to remove lead hazards from a property. On average, it's about $5,000 to $10,000 to remediate a property. And you also likely know that federal funding for lead remediation has dropped precipitously over the last decade or so. So the state of Pennsylvania does get money still from the federal government, and it comes down to the counties and the cities. And right here in Lehigh County, there has been HUD funding that has come, but for the state in total, for a lead remediation grant 2016, the state received money to do inspections in 279 homes and remove hazards in 186 for the entire state, and that went to 10 grantees, right? And I mentioned that in 2014, there were over 500 kids alone who were exposed to lead here in Allentown. So we've been exploring short and long-term strategies to be able to afford to help property owners remove these hazards so kids never get poisoned in the first place. We've been looking at short-term and longer-term strategies. So I'm here tonight with David Senoff to talk to you about a longer-term solution. We've been watching a successful case in California. It started with a few counties in California that raised a lawsuit against paint companies who knowingly sold a product they knew was injuring humans, babies, and they've had success in California. In fact, originally a $1.1 billion judgment was made against the paint companies, and we're buoyed by this. We think that there's a possibility that this could happen in Pennsylvania, that the money can go to counties, to residents, to remove these hazards so kids never get poisoned. We looked for over a year for a firm who would be willing and had some experience to take on a case like this, and we're so pleased to have matched up with Anna Paul Weiss. And at this point, I'd like to let David take.
Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, commissioners. As Colleen and Sarah said, my name is David Senoff. I'm a shareholder at Anna Paul Weiss, law firm in Philadelphia. We have offices in Harrisburg and Arizona. You may be wondering why we'd be foolhardy enough to take on the lead paint industry given who they have become, right? So the defendants are no longer like MAB or Dutch Boyd. All of those companies have been purchased either by Sherwin-Williams, Arco, Land Richfield, ConAgra, NL Industries, very, very large multinational corporations. And the answer is because not only do we have a history with lead paint in the Commonwealth, although not the most successful history, but also because our firm has a history of taking on these cases, particularly for children. We were the lead counsel in the Luzerne County Kids for Cash case. I personally worked on that case for going on 9 years now. And one of the things we saw in that case was that a lot of the kids who ended up in custody and later incarcerated did have elevated blood lead levels. And so There have been various studies, most recently in 2017 by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Pew Charitable Trust, saying that the biggest barrier to fixing this problem is simply cost, right? People can't privately afford to do it. County governments can't afford to do it. The federal government can't. The state government can't. Nobody can. The state made lead paint illegal under the Lead Paint Act, but they didn't take the next step. They made all kinds of findings about who knew what when, and there's all kinds of legislative history, as well as in the lead paint section itself, talking about the horrors of lead paint, the public safety hazard that lead paint presents, but no remedy. So when TCCY approached us, we jumped at the chance to actually work on this case for two reasons. One, we think we have a strategy that will be successful. The goal of the litigation would be to remediate going forward. This is not a piece of litigation where we're going to ask for money damages for individuals who may have been injured by lead paint. This is purely to create a fund to be administered by the county so that residents, low-income residents of houses or landlords who own properties that have lead paint, assuming that they meet certain qualifications that would be set again by the county, can come and get a certain amount of money to remediate or to do what they call LHC, lead hazard control, on their properties in order to avoid this from ever happening again. And just to put some sort of numbers, some metrics to this, the number of housing units in the county built before 1980 and occupied by people in poverty as of 1999. So these numbers are old, but the best data that we have is 9,023. Now, the various studies assume 52.4% of those units require lead hazard control and have at least one child residing in them. So that brings the number down to about 4,728. And the total estimated cost per unit is right around, the median is right around 8,269. So when you do all that math, for the county alone, that turns out to be, for this county alone, that turns out to be about $39 million. Now, I'm not sure we're going to get a $39 million verdict. I'm sure that we're going to get a $39 million settlement offer. I will say this, however, in California, as Colleen said, they did get a $1.1 billion verdict, which was reduced, but, reduced to $650 million. And then one of the defendants decided they didn't want to fight anymore and paid $50 million to get out of the case. Now that's a statewide case in California, under California law, which has much better damages statutes for public nuisances than we do here in Pennsylvania. However, because we would be requesting money to be put in a fund to be spent and administered by the county specifically to go to property owners for remediation, I don't believe that the idea that we would settle that case for somewhere in the nature of a mathematical formula based on an average amount per unit multiplied by an average, by the number of units that we could actually determine, that based on better data than 1999, were contaminated with lead, and at least one child resided in the house, and that the people who either owned the property or resided in the property were below the poverty level and therefore could never afford to remediate themselves. And so that's the goal of litigation. Montgomery County and Delaware County are already on board. I am meeting with York County on Friday. Our hope is to, get some sort of groundswell of county support, various county support. I know that the motion you have before you is one with regard to whether we should be retained I would just advise all of the commissioners that the retention agreement which we propose is purely contingency. There's no cost to the county either by way of litigation costs or by attorney's fees unless we're successful, in which case, in the worst case scenario for the county, a percentage of the recovery would be paid to us, but in the best case scenario, we would file a motion to have the defendants pay that cost and meaning our fees and our costs, which we will advance during the course of the litigation, and then the county would owe nothing if the court ordered the defendants to pay your legal fees. And I will tell you that that is sort of part and parcel of the statute that we would be suing them. So again, there's certainly no upfront cost. If we lose, we certainly will not come back with a bill to the county saying you owe us X, Y, and Z. And as I said, we will advance the costs as we go, and we won't seek reimbursement again unless we win. And again, we would only seek reimbursement both for our fees and our costs out of any fund that was awarded or directly from the defendants.
Thank you. Thank you for those presentations, to both of you. At this moment, I'm going to open up for questions. I know we're running a little tight on time, so I apologize.
No worries.
So, at the committee, is there anyone that has any questions at this time for David and for Helen? Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
So this hasn't been successfully done before in Pennsylvania, is that correct?
It has not been done at all, successfully or unsuccessfully in Pennsylvania.
Right. And are there any other states where this has been unsuccessful?
There's currently a case pending in Wisconsin, so there's been no ruling. I also believe there's a case pending, or there was a case in Rhode Island, which I think was also successful. But the varying laws of the state make one state's result not necessarily a good predictor of another state's result.
So you mentioned you have a strategy you think that would be successful. So what is that strategy? Why do you think that you will be successful or others haven't necessarily seen a path towards success?
Well, I'm not sure others have spent any time thinking about it, so I don't want to say that I'm some brilliant genius and I thought about this and came up with it when no one else did. Our strategy is simply to immediately seek what they call a declaratory judgment, meaning ask the Court of Common Pleas of Lehigh County to find that lead paint is a public health hazard, which the Pennsylvania General Assembly has already done, and then as a second step to ask that once they do that they find that it's a public nuisance, and assuming the court orders that, then to ask the court to award damages to remediate the public nuisance.
And why was, if I read the legislation correctly, it's specifically referencing one company. Is there a reason that one company was selected and not any other? In reference to Sherman-Williams Company, and then the NL Industries, FKA, National Lead.
And others.
Is it and others? Where's that?
Oh, yeah. So these were the largest, we gave a list of the largest companies. So Sherwin-Williams is obviously the largest. NL, which is also National Lead Company, actually sold their paint company to Sherwin-Williams, but not so long ago that they wouldn't be sued. And ConAgra and Arco each own various other paint companies that were responsible and actually active prior to the 1978 ban on lead paint taking place. So it's not that the statute identified them, but I believe my law firm identified them to Ms. Murray as the largest of the defendants that would be sued simply because They are the ones that are the successors in interest to the most number of lead paint companies that have painted various houses prior to 1978.
So this is limited to Sherwin-Williams and any of the companies that they've acquired under them, is what you're saying? Are you saying at others, or no, it's Sherwin-Williams and other companies completely
Correct.
unaffiliated with?
Correct. Correct. That's why I said some of the defendants would be ConAgra, the Atlantic Richfield Company, and now I'm doing this from memory.
That's okay, I'm not that familiar with.
So, you know, Atlantic Richfield is ARCA, right? But they bought some paint companies along the way, which is why they would be also a defendant.
Any more questions, Commissioner Hall? Because I want to open it up to the board.
You can open up the board, I have more questions, I can also ask.
All right, can I come back to you? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Osborne, you had your hand up
Yes,
first?
yeah, thank you, Commissioner Brown. If I understand what you presented this evening, you do not have to find, you're not required to find any example of an actual person who has been harmed by this. Is that correct?
That's correct. No person will be the actual plaintiff. Only the county trying to enforce the county's right to avoid public nuisances within the county's boundaries.
It's an interesting argument that you can say that you can get money without showing harm to any individual. And I point to a recent example of where we had a similar argument about lead in water, speaking of that. And that source of lead paint, and several other sources, really. Piping would be another one. You don't have to show any example of anyone being harmed. You are just suing these companies.
Well, we're suing
Proposing to.
We're suing the companies not for past harm, which is the reason why we don't have to find somebody to be the individual plaintiff, right? We're suing the companies for what I have referred to in the past as sort of prospective relief. In other words, the damages are based on the costs that it would take to fix the problem, not the damages that happened before. So this is not like a class action on behalf of every child who may have a high blood lead level in the county of Lehigh. This is just the county suing to fix the problem and to hold accountable the people that caused the problem, because as Colleen said early on, they knew for a very long time, that the industry did, about the hazards of lead and never revealed them to the public. And it wasn't until both the federal and the state government created the lead laws, there's 44 lead laws in the states, plus the federal law, that eliminated it, but never held them accountable because of that. So they required them to change the product, but there was no accountability simply to clean it up, right? If you think about what this case is in terms of analogy to other cases, perhaps there was a Superfund site somewhere in the county, right? This is akin to that, right? This is akin to, that would be a public health hazard, a public nuisance, and so we're suing to ask the people who created that site to fix it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dockery?
Yes, how many other counties are you going to be representing in this?
As I said, currently we represent Montgomery and Delaware County. We do not yet represent York County, but as I said, I'm hopeful that I'm going to meet with them on Friday and that we'll be able to represent them as well. We have spoken with people in Erie County, Allegheny County, across the state. So various counties have yet to make decisions, but you know, there are 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Obviously, it would be my hope that we would be able to represent all of them. Some counties have less lead hazard control needs than others. So obviously, we would love to represent the counties who have the highest need first and then on down from there.
Because the way everything is written, If there are only a few counties involved, then on top of the 33.5% that we have to pay your law firm, we have other expenses too. And the more counties that are involved, the less we would have to pay in terms of those additional expenses. So I hope there are more involved.
There certainly will be economies of scale. There's no doubt about that. You're absolutely right about that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gramis.
Quick comment, if you look at our website, the GIS department's mapped out the number of houses that were built before 1900, and there's a lot of red in the you can take that by 1977, I think 75 again. There's a lot of red, and not only in the city, but all of it.
I'm certain. As Colleen was saying earlier, I personally just had a leak in the roof of my house. My house was built in 1925, and the water came down the walls, and now the paint is bubbling, and I'm like, get a vacuum. Somebody get a vacuum like right now, and we have to go get this paint sprayed and cleaned. Because even though we painted over it, and people painted over it since 1925, my wife says, do you think there's lead paint here? I'm like, I am certain there's lead paint here, right? Because nobody ever remediated it, so.
Commissioner Olszak, did you have your hand up, I thought? Anybody else?
Just for clarification, even though Sherwin-Williams is mentioned, notice that it states that's in the collective case that Sherwin-Williams is being used to represent all of the cases.
Mr. Clerk, we had on the agenda here says a motion. So do we have to take the motion first tonight or
At the full board meeting, yes.
okay, but not here?
In committee, if you want to take them as a package, that's fine. If you want to take them individually, that's fine. At the full board meeting, the outside council motion will be approved before the agreement's introduced.
I do have, this isn't for you, it was actually for the administration or for Mr. Mulchaney, just a request of where would the fund, that if something would happen, where would that go? Is actually, because you said we would put it in a fund controlled by the county. So it just, I don't need an answer, I just want to put it out there, just ask where you get it, something to work on, okay? That's all I, and you said it's about $8,267 to mitigate a home.
Yeah, I think it's like 8,269 was the last number. I saw something like that, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Mr. Armstrong, our executive, is coming up right behind you.
Okay, Bill Armstrong, County Executive. The real question, or the real thing that I guess was not mentioned, this is going to be years as we discuss this. This is not something that within a year or two we have any idea. But I do think, like the opioid suit, that we're telling our citizens that we're going to do what is necessary to ensure their safety. And I think this is another case where we're proving to our citizens that we're going to take care of those things.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Yeah, this would be our third outside counsel this year. It's funny though that you guys are working for free for many months, and it's just interesting to me. That's all. But let's do one at a time. The motion. Oh, Commissioner Holt, I'm sorry.
I would just
Thank you.
say for the record that I still have some other questions, and at this time I'm not comfortable making a recommendation on.
Okay.
So if a recommendation is made, I will not be, I'm not comfortable.
Okay.
I am going to move a positive recommendation on the motion and favor.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Discussion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against?
So no.
Okay, that is a 3-1 vote to move to the full board with positive recommendation. All right.
Since Commissioner Holt has additional questions, should I have our visitor stay in the regular meeting?
Please.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can get a motion to adjourn, that'd be great.
We are adjourned at 7:11.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call to order meeting of the General Services Committee. We have present committee members, Commissioner Grace, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Stockton, myself. We have a few items before us tonight. I'll note that the original agenda had Vicki Bradley from Lehigh Valley Planning Commission. She had a conflict, and we hope to get her in our next General Services Committee meeting 2 weeks from now. We have 2 items before us and a waiver that will accompany the contract. So without any further ado, Mr. Cheney, will you talk to us, please, about these items?
Yes, Mr. Brown, thank you. Commissioners, before you this evening is legislation to approve a professional service agreement with Zetron. Zetron is a vendor that provides dispatch radio console equipment as well as software. We've been meeting with PEMA for many years on this project. One of the issues that created concern early on and concern in previous years for any type of regionalization was the ability for a call center to contact those end users via the radio systems. It became, quite honestly, the main reason why regionalization hasn't happened quicker in the Commonwealth. This opportunity that we have today is an opportunity to use one radio console with the software built to accommodate 4 radio systems: Allentown, Bethlehem, Lehigh County, and Northampton County. The benefit of that is you can, in fact, be sitting in Lehigh County's 911 center, and in the event something happened in Northampton County's 911 center, they could send staff to Lehigh County. They can get our equipment here, do some minor adjustments, actually communicate with their end users. First time that we've ever been able to do this. We couldn't do it between Lehigh County and Allentown, although we're sitting right in the middle of Allentown. Doesn't come cheap. PEMA early on really wanted a radio study that would come up with one radio plan. Therefore, no need to have the software developed. You, in essence, would have one radio system. Commissioners, that would be probably around $100 million project. And PEMA and the county are not prepared to put forward that kind of plan, especially with the recent $1.5 billion plan the Pennsylvania State Police have used for radio transmission. We're hoping that over the next several years that PEMA will pick a radio of choice, probably the Pennsylvania State Police radio system, and then we'll be able to migrate ourselves to that particular platform. This equipment would have the ability to be configured to take us towards the Pennsylvania State Police equipment. So we're setting ourselves up for what possibly can be some savings in the future. Commissioners, the PEMA has granted us a $3 million grant for this equipment. We went out with an official RFP. It's very complicated. We had consultants actually assist us on developing the RFP to ensure that all of our needs were being met, our needs being the 4 PSAPs that I mentioned. PEMA has approved the $3 million. Our competitive proposal process came in with an all-in cost at around $2.7 million. So we're under the budget that PEMA has established for us. Commissioners, this is 100% covered by PEMA. There are milestones that will stimulate the way the payments are made. However, we are, as a county and as a region, not responsible for the purchase of this equipment. We are responsible once the equipment comes online to maintain the equipment. So we requested, with previous permission, maintenance for the next 5 years on this equipment. They so bid that, and it is part of our plan with PEMA. You know, when we talk about 911, it's important to note there are some subsets of the comm center, and we've been actually lining them up and knocking them down over the last 3 years. The phone systems, the computer-aided dispatching systems, the labor, the facility improvements, all brought forward to this board for your approval. Commissioners, there's a sense of pride in the region that Lehigh County has taken the lead role in this developing this regional plan, as well as being the fiduciary responsible county. So I appreciate you riding along with us as we are in the lead seat on this project. We're making tremendous progress. After this particular equipment is approved and brought online, the equipment that's required for consolidation and regionalization will be purchased. There may be some smaller items that will still need to be figured out, but the lion's share of this project will be completed. Next time I come before you on the 911 project will probably be to talk about labor and an opportunity for us to create a consolidated labor force between us and Allentown in advance of the consolidation date of June 30th, 2019. Again, that's something that'll happen probably in another month to 6 weeks. We're finishing up that plan right now. So commissioners, this piece of equipment is very important to the consolidation and regionalization. Commissioners, it's been competitively bid. Proposals were received. Zetron was competitively priced, and their equipment met all of the requirements of the scope of work for the equipment. Therefore, I'm requesting that this board approve the professional service agreement with Zetron.
Thank you, Mr. Lachine. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Commissioner Dockett.
Yes, I'm just elated to hear that we're moving forward in another giant step, and I'd like to join you in terms of being a sponsor of this legislation, since I have been on board for many years looking for the regionalization of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Dockett. Mr. Burrell, will you make sure that Commissioner Dockett is added as co-sponsor to the legislation? Any other comments from members of the board? Commissioner Holman.
On the compensation page, and maybe you covered this already and I just missed it, but the remote consoles, there's no pricing for Lehigh County, but there is for Northampton. Do we not need those, or?
Commissioner Holt, Northampton County, with their particular labor issue with Bethlehem, has some immediate need to purchase the consoles quicker than I could bring them forward to this board for approval. They understand that it's contingent for us to pay them back, to reimburse them on your accepting of this project. But the $65,000 or so is them needing to advance the council purchase to assist them with their labor issues with the city of Bethlehem. These will be placed in Bethlehem. We are not in the same situation as they are. Our plan is to install them all inside our end-use facility.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Are there any questions on the accompanying motion for the waiver of the 30 days? Okay. Hearing none, do I have a recommendation from the committee to forward both the motion and the resolution with a positive recommendation?
So moved.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Dockett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And hearing none, this particular item will be forwarded to the full board with a positive recommendation. Are there any comments from members of the public? Okay, so we'll move on. We have one more item. That's Resolution 2008-52. Mr. Mulchaney, will you address that, please?
Mr. Gramis, before this board this evening is a request to extend the contracts with 4 of our engineering firms. These engineering firms had contracts with the County of Lehigh. There are renewals permitted by the contract. All renewals, however, must be approved by this board. So therefore, this evening, I'm bringing to you the 4 vendors, Cornerstone, Hanover, Base, and Bennett, for renewing their contract for 1 year. And currently, they're meeting the performance standards for the blanket agreement, understanding that they need to hold their rates as part of the requirement to extend their contract. And blanket agreements in the County of Lehigh are used for small, medium, and emergency type projects. It doesn't mean if you have a blanket that we may not put a particular project out for bid. What it means is that in a small project setting, or certainly in an emergency, it gives us the ability to take action quickly. And that's what's before you this evening for approval.
Okay, are there any questions from members of the committee on this particular resolution? Hearing none from the members of the committee, I'll open up to the full board. Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Commissioner Granis. Rick, can any one of these firms help us with the air conditioning unit over at the morgue?
Commissioner, these are civil and structural engineers, so no, they cannot.
Okay.
Having said that, the answer, quite honestly, is we do have some steel, some structural issues that we're working on out there to support the movement, but these 4 firms are not one of the choices.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think, oh yes, Commissioner.
No, I was just going to move approval of the positive.
I'd like to add that something like this gives you the flexibility to do many things, you know, and that's what you're doing.
These are a lot of bridge, sanitary, sewer line, stormwater sewer line issues. Gives a lot of flexibility.
So do I hear a motion from the board? Motion by Commissioner Dockett, second by Commissioner Brown. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we'll be putting this resolution tonight with a positive recommendation to the full board. Any questions from members of the public on this particular item? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn? Okay, so we stand adjourned.
Let's go.
Welcome to the September 12, 2018 meeting of the Lehigh County Board of Commissioners. Before we get started, I'd like to ask our clerk to please take the roll.
Commissioner Brace?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Dockett?
Here.
Commissioner Granis?
Here.
Commissioner Nothstein?
Here.
Commissioner Hartzell?
Here.
Commissioner Holt?
Here.
Commissioner Osborne?
Here.
And Commissioner Zanelli?
Here.
Ninth President, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'd like to remind everyone this meeting is being recorded for the public record, and also at this time, if you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, have there been any executive sessions held since our last meeting?
Yes, prior to tonight's meeting of September 12th, the board met in executive session to discuss personnel matters.
Thank you. Board before us, we have the minutes from our August 8th and August 22nd meetings. Are there any questions or concerns in regards to the minutes? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Dougherty. Second by Commissioner Holt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. At this time, I'd like to give anyone an opportunity to address the board on a non-agenda item. If you give us your name and where you're from when you address us.
Hello. Hi, my name is Julie Thomasis. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you. I'm a resident of Allentown, and as representatives of various Lehigh Valley organizations, including Power Lehigh Valley, the NAACP, and the Lehigh Conference of Churches, we're here to make a case for doing away with cash bail for nonviolent and low-risk offenders, as has Northampton County, Philadelphia, as well as other counties, cities, and states. Lehigh County has the opportunity to look critically at our criminal justice system and implement changes to make the system fairer for poor and minority citizens, while at the same time reduce our jail population and save tax dollars. You may have seen stories in the Morning Call and other media this summer about the inequities of court fines, fees, and cash bail, and better alternatives that are starting to replace cash bail. Our intent is to start a conversation and put on the record what we hope is the beginning of a process to eliminate cash bail. Briefly, cash bail is a system of pretrial release that forces a person who has been accused but not yet found guilty of a crime to pay a fee to be released from custody prior to additional proceedings or trial. While it is often characterized as a way to enhance public safety and ensure prompt, regular appearances in court, in fact, cash bail does neither of these things. Instead, it distinguishes among people by their ability to pay. In fact, other types of pretrial release, such as unsecured bonds and robust pretrial services, have been proven to be more effective and better at improving public safety. A 2016 study found that people accused of crimes and detained prior to trial have a 6 to 9% higher likelihood of recidivating compared to those who are not detained, especially among low and moderate risk people. Detaining such individuals for as little as 2 days increases their chances of committing new crimes. These findings are not surprising, given that pretrial detention increases an accused person's financial strain. Even though we know that Lehigh County Pretrial Services has valid risk assessment tool and robust pretrial services programming, the system still allows for many people who can't afford bail to end up in jail. In short, cash bail poses a three-part problem. It unjustly puts people into prison because they're poor. It increases costs to taxpayers, and it's being challenged in many courts as unconstitutional. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Thomasis.
Hi, my name is Sharon Finnegan. I'm a resident of Allentown. Just giving an overview of how cash bail works. Just for clarity, here's a brief overview how cash bail works in Lehigh County, which is similar to the way it works in most of Pennsylvania. A judge sets bail conditions, which often includes cash bail, based partly on a pre-trial risk assessment tool, which considers two questions. What is the risk that the person arrested, the defendant, will show up for trial? And what is the chance that the person arrested will commit another crime if released? In Lehigh County, median cash bail is about $10,000. So suppose a judge sets nominal bail at $10,000. A defendant who is well-to-do can arrange for payment from their bank account, and if they show up at court when required, most of the bail money will be returned. Someone who is too poor to come up with the $10,000 may be able to go to a Lehigh County-approved bail bond company and typically pay 7% of the bail amount, or $700, to the bail bond company if the defendant or their family can come up. with that non-refundable $700 payment. When the defendant's representative pays $700 to the bail bond company, they give them a voucher to take to prison, and the defendant will be released based on that voucher. If the defendant fails to show up in court when required, then they will be liable for the first full $10,000. But even if they do show up in court or are acquitted of all charges, the defendant, in this case, loses the $700. It is gone, it's non-refundable, and that cost is in addition to court fines and fees.
Thank you, Ms. Finnegan.
My name is Robert Walden. I live in the Bethlehem Mount Airy neighborhood. Some folks say if they do the crime, lock them up. But locking up everyone who is simply accused of crime can be very expensive for taxpayers, and it's unfair to people not yet convicted of a crime, and it doesn't necessarily make the community any safer. As Ms. Thomas has pointed out, holding low or moderate income risk defendants in jail pre-trial for even a few days significantly increases the risk that they will commit new crimes when they're eventually released. Here in Lehigh County, over the last several years, pretrial detainees have accounted for about 30% of the adults incarcerated daily. Based on this year's corrections budget, that amounts to a cost of about $8.4 million. Now, of course, if the county were to do away with cash bail, not all of those people are going to be released. Judges will still keep high-risk offenders locked up, such as those accused of violent crimes or who have a history of repeat offenses. And some folks who are released will still be required to check in periodically or meet other court-imposed conditions. But if we were to release all low-risk offenders without imposing cash bail, as Northampton County is already doing, we're talking about several $1 million that could be more productively spent and preferably keep more people from cycling in and out of jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wells.
Good evening. My name is John Paul Morosi. I'm a member of Grace Episcopal Church right around the corner here, and a resident of Bethlehem, and also a member of Power Lehigh Valley. I'm going to focus my remarks on two areas. One is examples from other states and from other counties in Pennsylvania that have ended or reduced cash bail. And the second, quick highlights of legal challenges to cash bail taking place around the country. First example comes from the District of Columbia. In the 1990s, D.C. established a law that states no one can be held in jail before trial because of a lack of money. Because of this, money bond is nearly non-existent. In Washington, D.C., they detain roughly 9% of arrested people. All others are released without financial conditions. The district has high court appearance rates, 91%, and public safety rates, 88%. Only about 12% of the district's jail population is pre-trial, compared to the national rate of 63%. The second example is across the Delaware River in New Jersey. New Jersey became the first state in the country to end cash bail last year, and since its enactment 1 year ago, they've seen a 20% drop in the pre-trial jail population. New Jersey replaced cash bail with a new system based entirely on data and risk. So as of January 2017, if you commit a crime, the state enters certain data about you into a risk assessment tool, things like your age, your criminal history, and the tool generates a score based on how likely you are to flee or harm the community. If you get a high score, you can be detained until trial. But if you get a low score, the judge is encouraged to send you home, possibly with some monitoring by the courts. Example 3 is closer to home from Allegheny County, the Pittsburgh area. They adopted a new risk assessment program that ranked people newly arrested as low, medium, or high risk for failure to appear in court if released, or for new criminal activity if they're released. At least 30% of defendants identified as low risk are now released without cash bail. The fourth example is from Our sister neighbor county, Northampton, they began a similar diversion program for people who are identified as low-risk offenders. These offenders are released without cash bail as long as they continue to meet the court's conditions. The fifth and last example is from Philadelphia. In July 2016, Philly launched an early bail review program that reduced its jail population just since then by about 20%. As a result of the declining jail population, Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kinney announced in April that the city's oldest jail, the dilapidated House of Corrections, will be closed in 2020. California just passed a state law to end cash bail, won't be implemented until next year. The final area I wanted to just touch on is legal challenges to cash bail. There are lawsuits pending in 9 states. In January of this year, a California appeals court handed down a bellwether decision ruling that the cash bail system is unconstitutional because underprivileged defendants languish in jail before ever being convicted of a crime. The ruling forces Superior Court judges in California to consider a defendant's ability to pay when setting bail amounts. A recent report from the ACLU states that the Supreme Court has repeatedly held that someone cannot be punished for being poor. If a person genuinely cannot pay a debt to the state, then the state must find an alternative solution, such as community service, a payment plan, or reduction in the fine itself. Nevertheless, many states ignore long-standing constitutional precedent and jail people for fines they cannot pay, resulting in modern-day debtors' prisons. The collateral damage is employment, child care, or education, making debtors' prisons a tremendous and unconstitutional barrier to climbing out of the cycle of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morosi.
One note, Mr. Chairman, if anybody would like their remarks attached to the minutes, please get a copy to myself or to the office later this week.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Swan. I'm a professor at Lehigh University, and I live in Allentown. Lehigh County reportedly has the 3rd highest rate of pretrial incarceration among the 67 counties in Pennsylvania. We are 3rd to Philadelphia and Pike County. And there are many individuals at a given time who remain incarcerated in the Lehigh County Jail solely because they cannot afford to post their assigned bail. Moreover, pretrial detention disproportionately affects minorities at every step of the criminal justice system. Blacks are more likely to be searched for contraband, they're more likely to experience police force, they're more likely to be charged with a serious offense and convicted and incarcerated than whites. Racial disparities are particularly prominent in setting bail. A recent study of the Philadelphia prison system conducted by the Princeton University found that black defendants are 3.6 percentage points more likely to be assigned monetary bail than white defendants, and once assigned bail, they receive bail amounts that are almost $10,000 higher. Those that cannot afford to pay bail may lose their job, their housing, and personal belongings, and their child care or education may be interrupted while they sit in jail, sometimes for months, without being convicted of a crime. Here's an example. Joseph Curry of Boyertown was arrested in November of 2012 for shoplifting from Walmart in Lower Macungie Township. District Judge Jacob Hammond set the bail at $20,000, which Curry was unable to post. Curry pleaded no contest to the charges and only entered that plea because he wanted to return to his family. After entering the plea, Curry was released and received 2 years probation, no sentence. He spent 88 days in the Lehigh County Jail, and while jailed, Curry missed the birth of his only child, lost his job, and put his home and his car in jeopardy.
Thank you, Ms. Swan.
I just want to close out, if that's okay, just wrap this up. In Pennsylvania, cash bail persists even though it is not required by law. It can and it should end. We're asking Lehigh County to take steps towards ending cash bail for all nonviolent and low-risk offenders. We know that we need the cooperation among the courts, the judiciary, the county executive, the commissioners, and the presiding judge in order for this to happen. Research shows that non-monetary release conditions and pretrial services such as counseling and reminders can be more successful at guaranteeing that people return to trial and reduce recidivism more than cash bail. These reforms do not have to be expensive or time-consuming in order to be successful. In summary, we are asking you to first work with the courts to develop and implement policies to eliminate cash bail on the county level, and second, to join us in asking the Pennsylvania State Legislature and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to revise state laws and procedure codes governing bail to allow for the elimination of cash bail. Thank you so much, and we have copies of a draft resolution for your consideration as well as a fact sheet. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Everybody's very passionate, and we thank you for educating us on it. The rules of bail aren't set by the Board of Commissioners. You know, this is something that our court administrator, Carrie Terzo, would be the person who should be made aware of this, as well as our presiding judge, Reed. So I think there's some commissioners that might have some questions or comments. Commissioner Doherty.
Yes, last night we had a budget hearing, and it so happens that the public defender was one of the people here. And I asked her this question specifically, and she expressed the same reservations as many of you have stated. And often I have to agree with what most of you said, even though I am a dyed-in-the-wool Republican, and I am supposed to be tough on crime and everything, but I also look at this as it's costing us a lot of money in the county jail. So if you're a fiscal conservative, you have to believe that the bail system that we have right now is improper. It discriminates against poor people. My political advisor, my wife, has badgered me up one side and down the other about this for much longer than I've been hearing it here from you people. So I am a firm believer. So maybe it's because of my Quaker background, but I agree with you, and I promise that when the president judge comes before the committee for the budget, that this will be one of the questions that I'll be asking the president judge. And I'm glad you said that you would like to work with the county executive, the judges, and with the commissioners in finding some way to address this situation. It is a system that is broken. It should be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Grace.
Commissioner Doherty alluded to budget hearings, and that he will be asking questions of some other elected officials. I note that the agenda that's set for the judiciary, district attorney's office, will be considering their budgets on September 24th here, 6 p.m. If anybody's interested in asking those questions or hearing answers to those questions here, September 24th, 6 p.m. Last night's meeting went until about 7 o'clock, so eat dinner before you come. And we'll be considering some other offices at the same meeting, but it would be a good place and a good venue for just the fiscal side of the conversation. But there are some other conversations that were raised, constitutionality, ethics, so forth. Certainly appropriate for the fiscal side also. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Grace.
Phil Armstrong, County Executive. Not as much the budget hearings, but if it is the board's wish, And if I'm reading Commissioner Doherty correctly, as the county executive, I would love to chair a committee of the district attorney, the public defender, myself, a member of the board, and bring in Carrie and the presiding judge. It seems like this would be something, before we jump into a resolution, that these people get together and have a meeting, and probably, if you would leave me your card, we should have a definite meeting on this, I think.
It's a great idea. Commissioner Doherty.
Yes, I think we should take you up on that, Executive Armstrong, and I would be willing to serve on a committee like that. I think this is the way to go, and as the county executive mentioned, I think that a resolution is out of order, because any resolution that we pass here would be considered unconstitutional by the Home Rule Charter, because this is the purview of the president judge, and we're not allowed to dictate to the judges. Usually it's the other way around, but I think if we get a committee started, this is the way to go.
And I spent today with the president judge all day on another issue. I think he'd be more than welcome to serve on something like that and get the input and solve the problem with everybody sitting down and working it out. So.
Commissioner Brace.
The only request that I have as this evolves, we as the Board of Commissioners deliberate in public. And in setting policy for the county, we do that in a public setting.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask that there be a significant public participation opportunity for that. The practices of the criminal justice system are often identified as being difficult to understand, and often stacked against those who come in contact with it. I think we can help demystify that a bit if we bring that conversation into the public today.
Yeah, and I think first, before we do that, though, we should have that committee put our ducks in a row, that we know what we're talking about, what do we want to accomplish, and how we want to go about it.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. All great ideas. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out this evening.
Mr. Chairman, would the board like to make a motion to formally make Commissioner Doherty their representative to a bail committee?
I'll make that motion. We have a motion by Commissioner Gramis, second.
I'll second it.
By Commissioner Brace. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Commissioner Doherty. Thank you. Thank you. Moving along, we have nothing under chair's review tonight. We're going to move right into our only appointment this evening. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the appointment?
We have an appointment to the position of Director of Corrections, Janine M. Donato.
Thank you. Comments from Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Donati is here tonight, or she is standing now. Last meeting, we were able to conduct a formal interview with the full board, with Janine. She comes with us with, I believe, 27 years of correctional experience. So I am looking forward to presenting Janine as our new director to the Lehigh County Jail. I believe she is going to do well. I have full confidence, and I'll support her 100% with the experience that she has. She also was previously, I think, Lackawanna?
Yes.
As a director, quasi-director title, if you may. But anyway, she is here, and that is coming forward to the full board as an appointment.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Are there any other commissioner comments on the appointment this evening? Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman Nothstein. Janine, I'd like to welcome you this evening. Thank you for the time that you spent with me, talking about the responsibility that you're asking for and may receive this evening. But two things that strike out to me that I would like to mention is you were before the board last evening, and I think very courageously you talked against some of the cuts that have been proposed for your prison budget. I'm not weighing the merits or demerits of that particular topic, but I give you kudos for standing up for what you feel you need to do your job properly. The second thing I'd like to mention is I am impressed, because this is now the third meeting where you've had your cheering squad with you. And I say that not jokingly, but just to notice that you do have the support that you're going to need to be successful in your job. So I congratulate you for having your supporters and them for coming.
Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Any other commissioner comments? Start at the top, Commissioner Graves.
Janine, your command last night of your budget was impressive considering the short time span in which you've been in the acting capacity, but really the short time period in which you've been with Lehigh County, albeit in a significant leadership capacity with the Department of Corrections. Last night was a good indication that the county executive brought forward a good appointment for this position, so I would support it.
Thank you,
Commissioner Doherty?
Yes, I was a little upset at the beginning that there weren't more applicants until I was told the reason why there weren't. I was told by people in the know that you're so involved in the corrections community in the state that people thought you were a lock for the job. So in terms of the small number of applicants, it's a testament to your reputation statewide. So I hope you remain very active there. And I'm very interested in hearing further about your views on how we can reduce recidivism, work release, and various other programs to keep expenses in check. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Any other commissioner comments? Ms. Donati, would you like to say a few words?
I just want to thank the board for the opportunity that's in front of me. It is something that I have worked toward for 27 years. I believe in being part of the solution to things, and so with that in mind, moving forward, I am fortunate, as you mentioned, with my staff, to have a supportive staff surrounding me. We rely on each other. We call it sometimes a think tank when we get together to break down issues, resolve them. We have a progressive staff. We have a progressive bench and probation parole department, district attorney's office, public defender's office. So it's a real collaborative effort in Lehigh County to continue to move things forward. I have over 300 staff members that are professional and competent and efficient, and I will continue to push forward with new ideas, progressive ideas, and at the same time maintaining the fiscal responsibility that we always have at Lehigh County.
Thank you. Thank you. Any public input on the appointment? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this appointment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Welcome.
Thank you.
Moving along to old business, brings us to Bill 2018-25. Mr. Quick, would you introduce tonight's first bill?
Commissioner Bill 2018-25, approving a donation of a male bison to the Catoctin Zoo and Wildlife Preserve, sponsored by Commissioner Grants.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
The purpose of this ordinance is to approve a donation of a young bison to Catoctin Zoo and Wildlife located in Maryland. Ordinance approval is required under Section 807 of the Administrative Code.
Thank you. Sponsor comments. Commissioner Grants.
I think everybody's waiting because right now the bison are going to be coming after them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We discussed this in committee and first reading at our last meeting of the board. The issue of the bison with the Lehigh Valley Zoo and the Trexler-Lehigh County Game Preserve and the Trexler Nature Preserve is a unique relationship. Certainly, we all know the story of General Trexler and how he endeavored to play a big role in the preservation of the species. We have a small herd right now. We have 12 animals. And recently we've undertaken the effort to undergo a breeding program. And when you do that, you increase the size of the herd. The nature of the beast is, an alpha male and a young male that's coming up. So this particular animal is going to have an opportunity, if this bill passes, to join other bison. He's not going to be alone at the Catoctin Zoo in Maryland. And if you get a chance to look at their website, which we have in technology now, we didn't have it about 12 years ago, you can see children feeding bison and have an opportunity up close to learn about the animal. And while it's true, this is not a prairie animal in the stage that it's in now, it gives the opportunity for young children and adults to experience the heritage that this country had. We have a lot of people in Lehigh County that have never seen a cow, that have never seen a goat. But now other people in Maryland will have an opportunity to see a bison. The fact is that you're not going to get AZA facilities to request or trade an animal because, quite frankly, you can buy a bison for maybe $100 or $150. It's all the care that goes with it, tuberculosis inoculations, and all the other things. So, without getting into too much of the detail of the bison that I undertook 12 to 15 years ago when I was a commissioner in my first round, I would say that I'm proud to be a sponsor of this opportunity. The alternative would be to have this animal here and have him undergo some treatments where he won't be in jeopardy to the alpha male. But here we have an opportunity to let another institution have an opportunity to grow this particular bison. And I think it's a good thing. So I'm proud to be a sponsor.
Thank you, Commissioner Granis. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Holt?
At our last meeting, there had been some concerns raised about the zoo that was going to, and I believe Mr. Holtanian said he was going to be following up with the zoo leadership just to confirm their favorable recommendation. And I may have missed the email back on that, but did we get confirmation from the zoo leadership that they support this, or?
We did have a brief conversation this evening, Mr. Mulchaney and I, and he's indicated to me that this particular transfer is supported by the management of the Lehigh Valley Zoo.
Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving Commissioner Bill 2018-25, please say aye.
Aye.
Bill passes. Moving on to new business, Mr. Clerk, I believe we have a motion necessary to consider resolution 2018-50.
Motion reads as follows, that the 60-day advance written notice requirement in section 801.1E of the Administrative Code be waived for the Department of General Services and reduced to 27 days for Zetron Inc. to design and install a public safety answering points PSAP consolidation system in accordance with the request for proposals number 18-017.
Thank you. Somebody like to make that motion?
So
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Holt. Any commissioner comments on the motion? Any public input? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the resolution, please?
Resolution 2018-50 approving a professional services agreement with Zetron Inc., sponsored by Commissioners Gramis and Doherty.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
The purpose of this resolution is to approve a professional services agreement with Zetron Incorporated relating to the Communication Dispatch Console Project RFP number 18017. The proposed agreement is attached to Exhibit A, and resolution approval is required under Section 801.1 of the Administrative Code.
Thank you. Sponsor comments, Commissioners Granis or Doherty, would you like to add anything?
I would just say that I'm impressed with the progress that the Lehigh County's made with the work that's done by Mr. Mulchaney in this particular topic. It's taken a long time. He's not the only one that's working on this. And I know he's given credit to a lot of people. But the man in the back next to the wall deserves a lot of credit. I'm proud of this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Granis. Commissioner Doherty, would you like to add?
I will just simply concur with it and states that this is one more giant step forward in terms of regionalization.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving resolution 2018-50, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Mr. Clerk, would you please introduce a motion related to outside legal counsel?
We have a motion for the appointment of outside legal counsel pursuant to section 407B of the Lehigh County Home Rule Charter. I move that the county solicitor be authorized to hire the law firm of Anna Paul Weiss to serve as counsel for the county of Lehigh, parentheses, county, relating to the county's claims against paint manufacturers for losses associated with lead paint.
Thank you. Someone make that motion?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gray, second by Commissioner Hartzell. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Holt?
I guess now would be the time because this is specifically to approve, authorize the outside counsel to follow up with some of these additional questions I had. So, in reviewing all of this, how certain are we, I guess I was still unclear in committee, how certain are we that the source of elevated levels of lead in children are tied to lead paint specifically, and that all of those, the percentage you gave, that 52% of the units that have a child present are 100% of those, that not 100% of those are primarily based on the lead paint, and that's the source of the elevated levels perhaps? I mean, is that what the premise is here, or?
Well, I'll let Colleen address the more technical aspect of your question, but
I hate to interrupt. Could you just introduce yourself to the public?
I apologize. My name is David Senoff. I am a shareholder at Anna Paul Weiss. Thank you, Commissioner. The answer to that question is we know that the most common exposure is based upon lead-based paint, dust, chipping, that kind of exposure in addition to other exposures. But given the age of the housing stock, not only in Lehigh County, but quite frankly across the state, we know that that is primarily the basis for the exposure. And I can let Colleen address any other specific questions about that you might have, as she's a public health expert.
I just want to ask that this is related to the legal question, not the technical. And in the pursuit of this lawsuit, this isn't a personal injury lawsuit, and oftentimes when we think about these types of questions, we think in terms of personal injury and compensation based on injury to the individual. What we're pursuing here is a judgment based on remediation and not personal injury. So the question of cause for the lead poisoning, for example, isn't as important as is the cost for remediation for those costs created by lead-based paint.
That's absolutely correct. This is a lawsuit about prevention, not about damages that may have occurred to individuals in the past. So this is a lawsuit that seeks, as you said, to remediate, to prevent more children from suffering lead poisoning in the future, as opposed to trying to create a fund of damages from which people who have been harmed in the past can draw down from. So really, as you said, Commissioner, this is solely a case about seeking a fund of money to remediate the problem, to fix the problem, going on a go-forward basis as opposed to a look-back basis. Personal injury cases, as almost everybody's familiar with, are backwards looking. There's no way to prevent a car accident, for example, but here we know what the harms are that are caused by lead-based paint, and we're just trying to fix it and prevent the problem going forward.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, David and Colleen gave their presentation to the governance committee, and at the governance committee, it was a 3-to-1 positive recommendation to full board. But because tonight it was such a quick presentation, we're just getting to meet you first. I think there's a lot more questions that need to be answered. That I know I have a few, and it would take a while. So if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I would like to defer this motion and this appointment of outside counsel at this time, if that's okay.
And I will second that.
Motion for deferment by Commissioner Brown, and second by Commissioner Doherty.
We changed our rules, so we can discuss this now.
We can discuss
Colleen was about to give us a response to Commissioner Hall's question. I think before we act, we might want to give her the courtesy of answering that, since I interrupted. I apologize.
Now, as the second, I feel that we should get as much information as we can tonight. But I consider this a complicated situation where it's unfortunate that this was brought up tonight. I care for the children of the community, and I believe something should be done, but this came up tonight, we got the information, and we're expected to vote on it tonight. I think that's too fast. And I think this is a problem with the system that we're getting into, that material that is discussed at the committees should not be voted upon that night. We should have 2 weeks between meetings to digest it and collect more information. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Colleen McCauley. I'm the Health Policy Director at Public Citizens and Children, and I appreciate the chance to answer the question. For across the state, the Pennsylvania Department of Health does report that the #1 way that children across the Commonwealth are exposed to lead is from lead poisoning. I don't have actual numbers of children, their exposure pathway for Lehigh County. But I will tell you that I understand that the county's experience is very similar to the other counties in this state, in that when an inspection, the first place when inspections are done is in the child's home, and the vast majority of children's lead exposures are found in that inspection from their home. I'm happy to do a bit of follow-up and try to get you some specific information for Lehigh County.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you for that. You mentioned that it was, that there's like the state has found that this is the case, is that correct?
Yes.
And is there a document that that's in? Is there a
Yes.
report?
Yes.
Is it possible that we can get a copy of that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown.
Since we're in discussion of the motion, I just wanted to say, I don't mean to sound mean about it, but this is in regards to mitigating the problem. Yes, the children were affected, I get it, I understand. But what this does for our folks in our county, it will, if there is a judgment in our favor, I just want to make this very clear, if there's a judgment in our favor, there's 9,023 dwellings here in the county, 52% of them require some mitigation. And it's about an average of $8,200. And what that would do, we would get a fund in our county that we would have control of, and that we could help those people that usually cannot afford that $8,000. I know I can't, that's a big chunk of money. This would help them do that. So I just want to kind of clarify that. I know that sometimes, but that is what the base of this situation is. Thank you.
That's correct. Excuse me, Commissioners, where would I turn in the document?
I would recommend sending it for Sarah.
Yes, Sarah, you'll be able to get us the information correctly, I think.
Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Zanelli.
I would like to request an executive session with our attorney.
right now? or-
No.
Okay, yeah.
It's a long enough meeting.
Yeah.
Much needed, but
Yeah.
nonetheless, I'm just saying that
Good
there are some
idea.
concerns that I have that I feel would be best suited
Yeah.
for discussion in executive session.
All right, well, thank you for coming out this evening. The resolution has been deferred, and just keep an open
We
mind.
need to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were... Yeah. So I'd like to give anyone an opportunity for public comment on the resolution deferment as well.
I would just like to comment, since it would be proposed litigation as opposed to pending litigation, I'm not confident that it's appropriate for executive session.
Correct.
But we can certainly talk one-on-one after that.
Okay, we're gonna, Mr. Clerk, can we take a roll call vote, please?
Is
on
a
the
roll
motion for
call vote
deferment?
on the motion, on the motion to defer the motion for outside counsel? Commissioner Brace?
No.
Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Dockery?
Yes.
Commissioner Gramis?
Yes.
Commissioner Nothstein?
Yes.
Commissioner Hartzell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holt?
Yes.
Commissioner Osborne?
Yes.
And Commissioner Zanelli?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I recorded 8 votes in favor and 1 vote opposed.
Thank you. The resolution has been deferred. Again, just please keep an open line of communication with the commissioners. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce the next resolution?
Yeah, but with, just for anybody in the outside world, the resolution itself, Resolution 51 cannot be brought forward without the approval of the motion. So they're both deferred by that action. Which brings us to Resolution 52, approving the Second Amendment to the professional service agreements with Cornerstone Consulting Engineers and Architectural Incorporated, Hanover Engineering Associates, Inc., Base Engineering, Inc., and Alfred Benish and Company to provide professional engineering services, sponsored by Commissioner Gramis.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
The purpose of this resolution is to approve a second amendment to the professional services agreements with the aforementioned engineering companies that provide engineering services on an as-needed basis. The amendments extend the term of the contract, replaces the non-discrimination clause, and also replaces the right to know clause. Copies are attached, and the resolution is required for annual one for the municipal code.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. Sponsor comments. Commissioner Gramis, would you like to add anything?
This is civil structural work for emergency small operations only, and they do bridge work from what I understand. So it's a very sensitive thing. Well, other than that, no, it's at the same rate and only for a year, so I recommend that we have positive.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Gramis. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving resolution 2018-52, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Mr. Clerk, would you introduce resolution 2018-53?
Resolution 2018-53, honoring Joseph R. Zeller, statesman, patriot, and recipient of the Freedom Foundation Award on the occasion of his 100th birthday, sponsored by the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
I'll reserve all comments for the board.
Sponsor comments. Commissioner Gramis?
I was forwarded the notification that Representative Zeller would be celebrating his 100th birthday about a month ago. And I can say that I had the privilege of seeing him again at the Unsung Heroes Award for Commissioner Zanelli and I were there, and Commissioner Nothstein, you were there as well, Commissioner Brace. He's an extremely talented individual of high character. The resolution itself is a remarkable resolution in the fact that it describes a lifetime in 3 paragraphs. He's a patriot, he's a statesman, he's a hero. And the fact that we're going to have the life ceremony of probably one of his most dedicated tasks of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, of which he fought to keep that monument in its current location rather than move it to West Park, I believe, is just a testament to his efforts that he had years ago. So he will be celebrating his 100th birthday next week, and that in itself is quite the accomplishment. But, you know, contrary to what my mother tells me, Joe Zeller still has it all together now. I would, at this time, like to open it up to other members of the board to share their experiences that they've had with Representative Zellers.
Now, Commissioner Brown, we'll start with you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely, Mr. Ramos, I concur with all that you said, but I got to meet Mr. Zeller about maybe 6 years ago at our Emmaus Flag Day Association ceremony. And man, that guy still has it going on. He's a beautiful man, he just is a person of service, dedicated to service. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Zeller, for that example that you set.
Thank you. Commissioner Doherty.
Yes, contrary to popular opinion, I have not known Joe for all 100 years. But I have known Joe for at least going on 40 years. And he was my state representative before, who took over after him? No, Don Snyder. So he was there before Don Snyder. So Joe has been a public servant for many years, and he has been very active in the Grange up there, and what would that be called up there? That's Stromansville? Or?
He resides in New Chipotle right now, so
He's been active in
Yes.
the Grange Falls there. So it's his wife, Ann, who was a worker here at the county many years ago. So as has been said, he's still very active, and he doesn't seem like he's a year over 70.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman Nothstein. I have a Commissioner Gramis light story.
Don't get into the detail.
And I may have known Joe Zeller longer than even yourself, Commissioner Doherty. Joe Zeller was the mayor of Emmaus when I was growing up, so we're talking 55 years ago, when I was old enough to know that he was the mayor. And I remember he just, Commissioner Brown, he just lived on the other side of Country Avenue there, not too far out of Lehigh Acres. Anyway, it was one of those homes as a kid growing up that you were careful not to speed on your bike in front of his house, because you thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. He's the mayor of Emmaus. So, but he's a very fine gentleman. He doesn't remember me from those kid days, but he really is everything that Commissioner Gramis is that he is.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2018-53, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Mr. Clerk, can I have a motion to suspend the rules of the board to consider Resolution 2018-54, please? Honoring Clarence Smith for outstanding humanitarian service.
Second.
So that motion was made by?
Commissioner Grace, and second by Commissioner Holt.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Any public input? All those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the resolution, sponsor comments, Commissioner Granis.
Promise not to make this Commissioner Graham's story heavy.
Too late. No, this guy here.
We have tonight a gentleman that's truly amazing in a lot of respects, and yet he's just like a neighbor, because essentially he's my neighbor. So what I'd like to say is, a lot of times people will say, well, this should be a personal resolution. Everybody on this board has an opportunity to probably know somebody like this. We have to do this more often. And how I found out about what Clarence does, Clarence is a member of my local Rotary Club. Him and his brother Nick, the Smith brothers. And Clarence called me up and said, could you please make sure all members come to him? So I said, he says, well, we have Valerie Danzig. She's the community engagement coordinator for Heifer International in the 3-state region of Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And she's come to talk to us tonight. I said, I'll make sure everybody knows. So lo and behold, the woman comes. And this is what Clarence does for a hobby. He helps people in other parts of the world, in my small town, in the small town, and in the country. And what Clarence did for Heifer International over the past 20 years is Clarence's hobby is he'll go into the unclaimed property list in the Pennsylvania Treasury Department, and he'll notify people that you have unclaimed property. Now, over the past 20 years, has been Clarence, you've managed to notify people that there's $85,000 of unclaimed property. Right?
Probably more.
A little bit more, right? And what Clarence asks is that individuals donate 10% of that $85,000 or whatever it would be. So in the past 20 years, Clarence has managed to collect about $10,000, just short of $10,000 for Heifer International. And what Heifer does is it'll just buy a cow. Now that cow is just maybe a bison for Kentucky. But to the people on the other side of the world, that cow is social status. It's a source of business. It's a source of food. It's a source of milk. And that's what Heifer International is, one animal. And not only does Clarence, was he recognized specifically by the woman who came to our meeting, I didn't know him at the time. I knew Clarence belongs to the Shriners, does a world of good there. We could get into the humanitarian efforts that Clarence has performed there. And I knew at the end of the meeting, was it you or is it your brother that collects the soda can tabs?
Both of them.
For an individual that will collect tabs off the aluminum cans because he knows somebody that manages to treat that for leukemia. Is it leukemia?
The soda can tabs are collected from the transportation fund to take the children to the Shriners Hospital.
I stand corrected. There's somebody with leukemia there too. But I can't keep up. So this man is Mr. Humanitarian, okay? And the fact that somebody takes this upon themselves as a hobby deserves to be recognized in some form or fashion. If I have a woman coming in from New Jersey or Delaware or wherever she happens to be at the time saying that your neighbor is doing this and I don't know it, well, shame on me. And so that's why I bring him forth tonight to recognize not only him but his wife Florence. Because, like Commissioner Dockley says, Florence keeps good tabs on Clarence. She keeps him honest, and she reminds him of a lot of things. So, Clarence, if you mind, I'd like to present you with a resolution on behalf of the board. Would you like to say a few words?
You better take a vote first.
Commissioner Dockley likes to remind me that nothing is certain unless you vote on it. So, can we take a vote on the resolution?
Absolutely. All those in favor of approving resolution 2018-54, please say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Clarence.
Now, Clarence, would you like to say up to the podium.
For the thousands of people who are watching this on TV.
That's right.
That's, my name is Clarence, and you said I do this as a hobby. I'm a retired accountant, and I've started when I was in New Jersey. I started to do this, and I continued when I moved here, and I do it on a voluntary basis. The donation is voluntary. I don't get paid to do it. To get paid, you would have to register with the state as a binder, and the paperwork is horrendous, so I don't do it. Some people make a donation, most of them do, and if they don't, that's okay too. I'll still do the work.
Great, Clarence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Granis.
Yeah, one comment. Commissioners, Clarence asked me last night who the commissioners' names were. So maybe you'll be getting an email, maybe you found something for you. Lehigh County is correct, is on the unplanned property list?
Lehigh County is on the state unplanned property list, yes.
Okay, and LCA is as well, so I notified Lisa, so she's very happy in regards. So, Clarence, I want to congratulate you. We have a resolution. Can we please come forward and get a picture taken? Resolutions here. You want to go front? Dan, we'll let you two go. Okay. I thought I was going to ask if some of the commission to find this. So what I'll do is
You want it now or you go up front?
Clarence is recruiting for membership.
So Commissioner Graham said $16. No, my.
All right, moving into our bills, we only have one bill under consideration for this evening, so Mr. Clerk, would you introduce that bill, please?
Commissioner Bill 2018-26, amending the 2018-2022 Lehigh County Capital Plan to include the purchase of video conferencing equipment for the Lehigh County Courthouse, sponsored by Commissioner Dockett.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
The purpose of this ordinance is to amend the 2018-22 capital plan to include video conferencing equipment for criminal courtrooms. The administrative office of PA courts will reimburse counties for the purchase of such equipment, and the description of the project is attached. Ordinance approval is required to amend the capital plan.
Thank you. Sponsor comments, Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, as the solicitor said, this is for video equipment in the courts, and the total cost of this is $35,848, of which we received a $34,000 grant. So we're only on the take here for $1,800, but that will be moved around within the court's budget.
Thank you, Commissioner Dougherty. Any other commissioner comments on the bill? Any public input? Hearing none, Commissioner Bill 2018-26 has first reading is scheduled for second reading, discussion, and vote at our next meeting. Any committee reports this evening? Commissioner Holt.
During the hearing we had, I guess it was last night, there were a couple items raised that were relevant to the administration meetings. I went ahead and been following up with the Director of Administration. There will be an email coming out related to the one on investment affairs and the grant, the second grant that was mentioned, the change in funding there. We'll possibly have follow-up at our next committee meeting, or our next meeting on that as well. And then the item related to an IT update, we'll be working to provide an update to the board on that as well, hopefully prior to our next meeting, regular board session, they have a meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Holt. Any other committee reports? Any public input of committee reports?
Really, Phil Armstrong, County Executive, not really public input on the committee reports, but just to inform the board, for the last several weeks, a committee has been put together in Lehigh Valley with Lehigh Valley Hospital, Sacred Heart Hospital, Ellen Jennings, just about everybody that has something to do with some kind of social services. Mayor O'Connell and myself were also on that committee. We met pretty much for 6 hours today. And I don't want the board to hear about this and wonder why are we participating. But the idea of this, a nonprofit organization, a very prominent nonprofit organization, has applied the money to hire a group called Rapid Results Institute. And they've worked with cities all over the United States, and actually some countries. And the idea of this program is to identify problems, homeless problems, in Lehigh County, and actually in Lehigh Valley. Come up with a set of goals to be realistic. You know, what can we do? And then it sets off on a 100-day campaign. Now, I am firmly behind this. The superintendent of Allentown Schools was at our meeting today, and if you can remember, a month ago, we had a gentleman here talking about the homeless. The superintendent said right now in the Allentown School District, they have over 1,000 children that are homeless. And that's a staggering amount. But the idea of this program is to model something not just for Allentown, but for the entire area. It's a very good idea. We're having a lot of people working in silos in this problem. And the whole idea of this nonprofit was to let's put money to bring together everybody. So today was the kickoff, but not the kickoff for the 100 days. And they're probably, Channel 39 PBS is also on this committee. So there will probably be a lot of advertising, but it was very secretive up to today. So it wasn't something I've informed you about because they didn't want it out. But today was the beginning. October 10th, we are planning on the kickoff day for the 100 days. And it's quite this Rapid Results Institute has great results. And we looked through the data that they presented today. It was very, very impressive. So I just wanted to let you know that Lehigh County is going to be part of this. Okay?
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thanks.
Any commissioner announcements this evening?
I have some brownies that I think I'll get you rid of tonight. So if you're still here, you can come get some brownies after.
Commissioner Doherty.
Yes, the deadline is passed for people to sign up for CCAP committees, but it has been extended. So if you'd like to sign up for a committee, I know several of us are on committees already, but if you'd like to sign up, please do so through Lori at CCAP. And even if you do not go to CCAP meetings, you can still be on a CCAP committee and have input into that committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Doherty. Commissioner Hall.
I forgot to mention that at the last Conservation District meeting I attended, it was highlighted how they finally achieved the goal they've been working towards. There's been concern they had shared with this board several years ago about how they had this legacy cost, and they've been working hard to set aside funding to cover that legacy cost they had, and they seem to cross that threshold and have been able to set aside recently. They able to obtain another CD that was in a good financial position. So I just wanted to report back to the board that was quite an accomplishment with the money on hand and the money in CDs. They feel like they're in pretty good shape now.
Thank you, Commissioner Hall. Any other commissioner announcements? Any citizens input? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
And you have a seat.